Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. I'm Glenn Hausman, and we got Dr. Producer Suzanne in the house today. Excited to be spending some time with you today, and even more excited that you guys out there would choose to spend some time with us. Suzanne, how's
I'm
it going?
excited to be live with you today. Look at that. Life is fun.
Yeah, baby, this is great. Our last live show before tomorrow night. We're doing Friday Night Audit, 5 p.m. But then I'm going to be off on the road for 2 weeks. Looking forward to this, Suzanne. I'm going to be doing the opening of Choice Hotels' 500th extended stay hotel. And I got a great, I'm going to be hosting something and a panel and doing a speaking gig with the great folks over at Hotel Spaces. Then, of course, we'll be at the hospitality show where you're hosting a panel, and I'm going to wind up sitting in the audience because no love for G-Man at that event.
I am really excited. Actually, it's awesome. I've had you in my audience once before.
Now,
This
sorry
year,
for falling asleep like that. It wasn't you. I
you did
swear.
not fall asleep. But I am really excited to have you in my audience for this one. We have an amazing setup coming with Dina from State Pineapple, and so it's going to be pretty exciting.
Awesome. And Dina's going to be coming on here next month, I believe, or sometime soon. But check out last week or 2 weeks ago's Friday Night Audit number 154, where Dina and Suzanne Pineapple did up for us. All right. So today we're talking a little bit about what's going on in the state of the hotel business. You can't help but talk about that, particularly since the afterglow of the lodging conference is still happening over there. So I got our friend Michael Blank, principal over at Woodmont Lodging, to join us today. He's got a little bit of a different philosophy about hospitality. But before we get started, Michael, great to see you here.
Yeah, likewise. Enjoyed the time and lodging conference, and I thought your afterglow was talking about my sunburn from that heat. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm feeling jealous. I had no afterglow. I didn't get to go. Inspire me, gentlemen. What was your takeaway?
All right. First, I say, hey, I want to thank Michael for participating in this great panel I did for the hotel business hot topics, which was absolutely great. Got another one of those coming up on the 23rd. Unfortunately, Michael's not participating in it, but we'll get him on somewhere. You going to the hospitality show, Michael?
I'm debating it. I travel so much that I kind of have to pick my spots sometimes.
All right, let me know if you go, because
yeah, definitely
more video there. But you guys aren't here to tune in to what backstage stuff we do. Michael, tell me about your overall impressions of the lodging conference. We could start by, saying how awesome Harry Liz and Brent did, because they did an amazing job. But I really do want to hear about what you heard there and whether it reflects what you were thinking going in.
We're eternal optimists, right? And hope springs eternal, and lodging conference was no exception. I think everyone, is kind of wrapping up the year feeling better about the way the world is looking and kind of has more visibility. And so I think people may still have some of those lingering concerns that have kind of carried with us through the last 6-8 months and months before that, but feel very optimistic once the year ends and the new year turns.
All right, I will throw in there, Suzanne. He mentioned lingering concerns, but the fact of the matter is there's always concerns about something, right? So I see it, Michael, as the hospitality industry is the yin and the yang. No matter what good is happening, and people always got to focus on the negative aspect of it. And I too am an optimist, so I always try to see the positive. And when I'm trying, Suzanne, I'm trying to be positive, and then now I'm totally thrown. And now, but what I do see is that challenges could really be opportunities that turn into something better in the long run. At least that's just how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an industry that in many ways hasn't changed at all, right? And so the concerns that people have today, probably the same concerns people had in the 50s, right? There's just a lot of things that are redundant. And to your point, how do we flip that script and take those concerns and really try to turn them into opportunities?
I was just thinking back, Suzanne, to the high-tech keynote that we did, where the one thing is different. You don't have the vibrating beds anymore, and I was wanting to bring that back. Maybe you could do that as part of your next project, or maybe over here at Grand Baltimore.
Of course.
Yeah. So, Michael, how are you thinking about the state of hospitality right now for you as an asset manager, as an owner, as a third party manager. What are your biggest concerns right now that you think you might be able to turn into something positive?
Expenses are always an issue, and we're a highly labor market, the daily lease model. How do you extract more to the bottom line is an ever evolving challenge, and the last 4 years has proven even more challenging. We've had the benefit of historical rate growth, which but you've also seen every aspect of the expense side.
Yeah, historical high expense growth.
Yeah. So that's what I think for all asset managers, that's what keeps us up at night. How are we going to get more to the bottom line if, as we see now, the top is slowing down?
Right. And this is a prevailing concern that I've been hearing about for a long time. And of course, we've been covering here on all of our podcasts and videos. So how do you break it down to kind of go through? I mean, to me, the obvious thing is trying to figure out how to mitigate labor costs through technology, and also leveraging technology in new ways in order to be able to lower those expenses.
Yeah, I think what we're spending, what myself, my partner, we're trying to do in kind of more holistic basis is look at the business model and see what we're missing, in the sense of, hotels are an operating business, but they fall under the category of real estate. And if you look at hotels from a real estate perspective, we're the only ones that don't really look at things on a per square foot basis. We don't really look at things on how to maximize the real estate we own. We just look at how do we maximize the revenue in 60% of the building.
Right.
So, when you think
of perception change, you got to really look at each individual element of it as opposed to the big picture. Okay, go on. Mike.
So I think we spend a lot of time thinking about how can we maximize the footprint. Look, there's the obvious answers that people are doing today. How do you refine your labor, and how do maybe you cut out certain things, or do you start charging for parking where everything was free before? Right? Those are very effective things. Maybe things that should have been done a long time ago, but we're trying to figure out how we change the paradigm to say, okay, how do we make more money with the box that we have, beyond the idea of trying to charge guests $1 more.
Right. And to me, I think when you keep charging, at some point it's going to have a negative effect. We're seeing that with some major theme park companies right now. We're seeing that with certain resorts right now. Suzanne, I feel like you got to jump in there.
Well, when you talked about the real estate standpoint and the footprint, and you really brought up an interesting point that has kind of piqued my interest in terms of parking. Now, in center city hotels, that's typically a foregone conclusion that parking is going to be, when I do an expense report, I think, okay, I need at least $50 to park per day. But for locations that aren't, and you're limited and within your footprint, is that something that you're seeing that's coming around more? Is it just discussion and thought process, or does that kind of fade away because you don't want to nickel and dime the guests with additional fees all around?
It's coming, it's happening, and it will happen more. It's going to take a long time before you see it in distant tertiary markets. But the reality is that in our business, it's one of the few business models where the less you spend, the more you get.
Yeah.
Right? You get. The lower tiers give free internet, free parking, free breakfast. And we've created the monster, and now we're trying to claw it back. And so, look, we use third-party operators when we suggest things like charging for parking. Their first response is, "We're going to lose all of our business."
As a guest, I will go to the hotel down the road because why would I pay you for parking?
And that's fair, right? But failure has to be an option too, right? Yeah. If I lose 10 guests but gain more money in the flow through of parking, then it's a win for me, right? I am more profitable. I wear my asset down less, and I'm effectively maximizing my footprint.
And that really was the whole mindset, I feel like, with when I used to teach hospitality technology, and we would talk about internet, right? We created the monster. We gave away internet for free. And then we had to look at how could we then enhance with the wireless router boxes throughout. And then there was a differential between having Wi-Fi, or if it was hardwired, if you're trying to take governmental business. And then we provided that for free because our neighbors down the street provided it for free. But then we started charging for it and clawing back out of that. And so that's that same type of mentality.
Yeah. So I think this business is ripe for opportunity, for ways to maximize revenue in a way that's never been done before, but has been done in every other kind of retail or commercial office space. We're just a little bit gun shy to change the paradigm.
All right. So is the secret sauce charging more for getting the same, or is it a more holistic approach of getting people to voluntarily spend more because you're offering more opportunities for that spend, or maybe a little of both?
You're finding ways for people to spend more money, or find ways to use the business you have to create incremental dollars. So I'll give some examples. We haven't beta tested this yet, but these are what the things that always ruminate in my head.
Yeah.
You go to a grocery store and you're checking out there, you're inundated with all that stuff, right before you check out, right?
M&Ms right at the end, they're teasing me.
You got to get those peanut M&Ms, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, peanut over regular, by the way.
Of course. If you're a traveler, that's the only choice. But we put the gift shop or the sundry off to the side, like away from the check. What if you just moved the candy and some of those things in front of the front desk agent? The person leaving they don't have to make a second choice. It's in front of them. It's almost instinctual, right?
Yeah.
It is as simple as doing little things that has already been proven to work.
I think True does that in some
They have that. Yeah. I mean,
right in front.
Yeah.
Circular thing all around the person is. Yeah.
But it's simple things like that. I mean, the second thing is more higher level technology kind of driven, but we have a captive audience in our hotels that we don't know anything about what they do when they check in, after they check in, and before they check out. And there is information we can learn from them that we could monetize in a way that it's not invasive of privacy, but understands people's spending habits and habits in general when they visit our hotels, that we can somehow
overall behavioral motivations as opposed to a specific piece of knowledge about a guest, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Like this is what I'm toying around with. I have no idea how many people leave their room at 6 a.m. And I guarantee you that no one does, right?
Should the box tell you that, right?
They should. They can. Many can. But I don't think anyone really collects that data in a way that's productive. Imagine
because it only tracks what is opened,
right?
Not your door.
But office buildings geolocate their tenants to know utilization, HVAC, whatever. Retail geolocates their customers to know what products on shelves get the most eyeballs. Why don't we geolocate our guests to know their movement habits, not privacy things, but just habits of movement, and how we can staff differently, how we can, maybe offer promotions differently, just by knowing that if I know that 60% of my guests leave their room at 5:30 for dinner, then if I send them a text at 5 for a promotion for a drink, maybe that gets 10%, hit rate.
Yeah.
But that's 10% more than I had before.
And it's not really costing you anything once you've automated. So we're in a kind of a data black hole,
but we have so much data potentially available to us that we just don't use to make smart decisions about our business.
Well, the problem with data, I'm sorry, like I know Suzanne, I know you want to jump in here, but I can't shut up. The problem with data is that it could be so overwhelming that you don't know where to begin. So it could actually work against your ability to move forward smartly if it's not put into a language hoteliers could really understand.
Right. Again, these ideas, like I like to think I'm brilliant and novel, but I like to think I'm smart, but I'm not novel, right? This is being done, we all have a conversation and all of a sudden we get a hit on Amazon that is strangely linked to our conversation, right?
Yeah.
Or, companies monitor us in a way to maximize their revenue.
Right.
I'm saying we could do it in a way that, doesn't cross the privacy line
Not invasive.
but does it in a way that in some ways gives the guests what they want, even though they don't know that they need it or want.
Hey, right? That's the iPod in a nutshell, or the iPad for the next generation of products, right? Because you never would have thought of it, but once you have it, you're like, how did I ever live without it?
Right. So thinking about how you can use this data to maximize the value of your footprint, right, is kind of the holy grail for me. How do I step outside of the room to generate money for my hotels?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always thinking about.
Yeah, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think we've made so many advancements with technology, and we know for the most part the hospitality industry has always lagged behind in the advancement of technology. But how can we do it in that way that becomes non-invasive, non-creepy? Because in some way we're still trying to make people feel like it's a home away from home, but leverage the data that we have in our industry. Operators that we have are also not necessarily thinking, how do we take this data and leverage that? So I love your spirit, Michael, in trying to think, how can we take what other locations or other companies and business industries are doing and employ that into what we're doing. Although I think those M&Ms need to be higher up so the kids don't see them and want to grab them, because I'm the parent that doesn't go down that grocery store aisle with all of that stuff. Yeah. And I'm going to self-checkout because of that stuff.
Yeah, they put them in the self-checkout too. They
do. If you guys are about this sort of stuff, I recommend this classic book by Paco Underhill, Why We Buy. And it talks all about these things and really gets into the psychology of purchasing and how they kind of created an industry based on understanding consumer behavior in order to motivate people to do more purchases. And Suzanne, you made me think of that because they put things in certain places on the shelves specifically so kids could see it, or specifically for an adult to be at arm's length with very specific.
I mean, in spitballing here, think about retail and shelving and grocery stores. Retailers pay to have certain items higher up on a shelf or lower on a shelf. Well, why not at hotels? Why can't we get certain retailers to say, look, if they want to sell our Doritos, you need to pay a little extra to get them in this level versus the next. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways you can slice and dice it that I don't know if the industry has really spent much time exploring.
I would be surprised if there was a lot of time spent exploring these things that you're talking about, because all of this stuff is kind of a very fresh, unique approach that I haven't really heard. I keep hearing the problem with our industry in general is there seems to be a circular feedback loop. So one idea just keeps going around and around and around. And it's very hard for new ideas to be introduced into that because everyone is so caught up with the that first thing. That's why I really love this particular perspective. Michael, one of the things that I find is a lot of us are out on the road on hoteliers, and we don't think about how we stay in hotels and how we want to experience hotels. And there's almost kind of like this psychological divide between the person as the operator and then that same human being who is a guest. I'd like to try to, break down that wall in the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a typical guest, right?
You're not.
I know that. And so one of the things, and I was sharing this with somebody, one of the things that I like to do when I look for hotels to buy or oversee the properties we own is I love visiting rooms that are vacant dirty. Because I'd love to see how the guest leaves a room when he's done. where they move the furniture, if there's overflowing of trash, and if it's the same kind of trash in every room, whatever it is.
Like, why are we not selling X product?
Yeah. And so, it's, you go visit a hotel on a site inspection, they say, oh, we don't have any rooms that are clean. I'm like, great. But they never want to show you dirty rooms. And nothing will reveal a hotel better than how guests consistently leave a room.
All right. One thing that really bothers me, totally off topic here, is you want us to recycle. Why do you have trash cans that are this big? So if you have more than one water bottle, it's on the floor. Now I'm making the housekeeper either bend over and I look like a jerk, or I just throw it out in the regular trash down the hallway. So maybe we could work on that problem too.
Yeah. I mean, we've all, I don't know when the last time, Glenn, you worked in an office building, but many of us have worked in office buildings and stayed late and seen what happens to recycling, right? I know it looks good in hotel rooms. I don't know how well it's enforced, and
it's not. I have the feeling, and this is not based on anything except maybe my own behavior. But I think the differentiation between the blue bin and the black bin seems to be more optional, especially when they're right next to each other.
And I think, look, as beneficial as the brands are, and we live and die by them, they are also sometimes our worst enemy.
Correct.
Because, the beauty of independent hotels is it's a creative outlet that a lot of owners want to try but can't because they're restricted by the brand standards. So they serve as a great beta test for some ideas to step outside that. But yeah, I mean, the controlling of data, right, is dictated by the brands in many cases. The way hotels are set up, dictated by brands. Again, we need them. Right. They keep the lights on for us. But
absolutely, and no smack against the brand.
But that's some of that danger loop you talk about, is that we can't do things because we need to wait for approval from someone above to do it.
And that's kind of why I love that there's so many great independent-minded hoteliers out there. And while I have a happy, sad feeling every time one of those independent companies are scooped up by the big brands, because in the end of the day, I know these people are going to go and create more independent brands, and it's going to wind up being fine in the end. But I love that independent-minded spirit where you can have that proving ground that will then make the larger companies take notice and then eventually be able to adopt and adapt their system. So I do see these as a yin yang, and we need both those components in order to have an extremely healthy hospitality business. It's just sometimes there are benefits to one that the other side doesn't have.
Right. But I think to that point, Glenn, right? Yeah. We measure things based on number of rooms, right? So we may have a great idea, but to implement that 100, 200, 300, 400 times, that prevents us from taking on that spirit to say, we're willing to try it in a smaller property and take note of it, because I feel like we are trigger shy with a lot of those pieces.
Yeah. It's, this is a capital intensive business. And so we're always replacing mattresses. You're always replacing carpets and stuff like that. You run out of wiggle room to do the investments in the things that maybe aren't tested or are on the fringe, because it can't fit in that hierarchy of priorities. It feels to me that we're a small portfolio owner. But it feels to me that if you're a large capitalized ownership group, that every one of them should own one hotel unbranded and use it as their beta test for everything. It's like, Hilton, Marriott, and all these companies have like model rooms. It's like every owner should have a model hotel that they could just test all the stuff they want to test, but don't or can't, and use it for those experiments.
That's great. Hey, Daniel's got a question. So again, I'll bring it up. I think we need to end do not disturb sign era. With new technology now, the red light, green light button that are newer in hotels are fantastic. I agree in principle, because number one, no smack against do not disturb sign manufacturers, but y'all got to figure out how, when I'm shutting the door, it stays on the door. So, I mean, please, that'd be great. But Michael, realistically speaking, is that realistic? Is that a huge cost increase that owners are willing to take, are going to be willing to take upfront, particularly in the select serve industry where you're doing 3 to 5 year plays?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is no, it's not realistic. But in part because you have to remember there's about 65,000 hotels in this country. And the largest owner of hotels is probably 2,000 hotels. And from there, it goes from 2,000 to 500, which means that most hotel owners own one hotel. It is a lot less expensive to buy those plastic signs and maybe replace them or maybe not than try to redo all the infrastructure. Well, I mean, it does feel like the door lock itself should almost have a light on it, right? When the person locks it, right? And or something they can do there, like a little switch, but something integrated. But this is, I mean, how long did it take to get soap to change, right? I mean, how long did it take to get mobile? Like, we are a turtle's pace industry, and what you experience in your home may take, you know, at least 10 years to show up in your hotel.
Well, sadly, I know a few turtles who would argue that they are much faster than change.
But to that point with the door lock, right? That's the one thing where Michael, you mentioned that we are more apt to change the mattress. We will change the mattress faster and more frequently than we will actually the door lock, because that's meant for a much greater length of longevity. And that was why it became such a harder transition to become mobile key friendly, because people weren't just replacing the whole door lock set. They had to come up with an adaptation to be able to install that onto the door lock to be able to make that work. New properties, had that, but even if that technology comes out, we're not going to necessarily jump on board of saying, oh, let's go change all those door locks. So if you've ever done a door lock renovation project, that's some level of intensity there. That's some funness.
Well, I got offered the opportunity to get the key, the mobile key from a major brand through their app at a hotel I stayed at extremely recently. And I'm like, great, I'm actually going to do it this time. I'm going to bypass the front desk and I'm going to do it, even though I'm a Luddite. Then I tried to do it. And then it's like, you have to go to the front desk and show your ID. So what's the purpose of me now in the future ever bothering to adopt that technology? I'm like, I'm out, at this point. I'll revisit it in 5 years, of course, when I have no choice. And then I'll pay the parking thing in a suburban location in 5-10 years when I have no choice. But until then, I'm going to keep this positive mindset that Suzanne knows I constantly have.
So does that mean I have to pay for your parking when we're in Austin? Oh, that's right. You found the hotel that didn't charge for parking for us.
I mean, there's always Uber.
I don't rent cars typically, although lately I have a couple of times. I prefer the freedom of Uber and Lyft and being able to move around if I can. Michael, I'm having so much fun talking to you, but before we wrap up, maybe you could give us a couple of ideas about how you get into that state of mind. The question is, I guess, is how should we be thinking instead of the way we're thinking now when it comes to innovating on how we can make more profitability in hospitality?
Yeah. For me, it's really reflecting on the industries around us and what their best practices are that could be applicable. Right. I recall there was a panel at Lodging Conference about one of the major owner groups talking to some of the restaurant companies to understand procurement and supply chain stuff and how they could apply that to their industry. Right. It's things like that. Is somebody else has already tested the idea. It's not novel outside the industry. It's just novel within it. So you look around you and then you say, okay, what can be applied to us and why hasn't it been applied and what's the barrier?
Right. I'll give you one example. I just heard the rumors are that they're doing a test program at the Walt Disney World Resort at Fort Wilderness with autonomous vehicles, not cars, but the little delivery guys, right? That look like the Martian lander kind of a thing in order to deliver, groceries and stuff, since they have like kitchen type units there apparently. So that's not a new idea. My kids have it at their college campuses, right? So I feel like a dummy because once I heard it, I'm like, duh, why aren't some of these massive resorts that are so spread out already utilizing the technology that's already being proven to work with 18 to 20-year-olds? So, you know, we got to all open our eyes, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. Agreed.
Does this mean there's a Disney trip coming on board now for you to experience these autonomous boats?
No, hell no. They've gotten way too expensive. I'm going to be spending my money somewhere else. Probably get back to nature and something like that. When the Disney Corporation respects its customers a little bit more, then maybe we could all go back. The nickel and diming there, I think that they are reinventing how far you can nickel and dime customers to really turn them off. And I'd like very much to see them turn it around and be able to continue to deliver magical experiences that I grew up with and made me a big fan. Now all they've done is tell me, you know, like my favorite airline, I'm only as good as the last dollar I spent over there. Michael, I'm sorry to end on a negative note. I don't know what my problem is, but let's talk about the positive. How can we learn more about you at Woodmont Lodging?
Yeah, I mean, you know, go to woodmontlodging.com. You can get all the information on us, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions or thoughts, and happy to keep the dialogue going offline.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate you being here. And
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Man, that was such a great conversation today. And you know, sorry to be such a crabby McCrab over here, but sometimes, Suzanne, sometimes this stuff just really just gets to me when people are not focused on customers enough.
Interestingly, I've got students working on a project, and one team is working on Disney, and the piece they're tackling is the cost. So we'll see by the end of the term if they've come up with a dynamic solution that can solve that.
Well, they just found a new way to charge customers who want Lightning Lane an extra $300 to $400 at the Magic Kingdom. So stay tuned for that breaking story. Meanwhile, you're going to want to re-listen to this show because there is some amazing ideas in here. And the best way to do that is get the podcast version wherever you get your podcast and listen to us while you're walking the dog, while you're taking a walk, while you're getting, you know, the groceries, whatever it is over there. And make sure you watch us on your favorite video site, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And of course, all shows are housed at novacancynews.com. Thanks for being here, everybody. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
follow your passion.
And we'll be back in live shows in 2 weeks. See ya. Bye.